the former president's plane landing at Reagan National Airport in Arlington. That was just before 3 o'clock this afternoon. Then his motorcade traveled through Arlington across the 14th Street Bridge here to D.C. Federal Courthouse on Constitution Avenue in Northwest. We did not see the president come in, the former president, from our vantage point here. And then just before 4 o'clock, Trump then headed into the courtroom to be arraigned on 4 felony charges, all of those charges stemming from his alleged push to overturn the 2020 presidential election and, of course, the violent and deadly insurrection that followed at the U.S. Capitol building on January 6, 2021. Right around 4:30, that's when the former president stood up and pleaded not guilty to those charges. The hearing ended about 10 minutes later, and then the former president's motorcade left the courthouse just before 5 o'clock. Now, between the media circus at the courthouse and the people on both sides who came out to watch, security has been very tight today. A ton of people, a ton of police, although they have since, for the most part, dispersed. Here now on the scene outside the Federal District Courthouse with our reporter and producer, Jordan Fisher, who has been inside of this courtroom and courthouse for a lot of these January 6 proceedings. What did you see unfold inside of the courtroom with the former president today?
Adam, in many ways, it was a very normal proceeding. The president came in, he had the charges read to him, he was read the terms of the supervised release. The government did not ask for detention, as was expected. In some ways, of course, it was very unusual. The courtroom was filled with Secret Service agents. The former president is a Secret Service protectee. There were a very limited number of seats. Now, when the president came down and sat in, he was flanked by both of his attorneys. He mostly listened quietly. He answered a few questions from the judge, largely did not speak. One of the most notable conditions that we heard from the judge is that he is barred from speaking to any of the possible witnesses in this case unless that goes through counsel, one of his attorneys, essentially.
And the special counsel bringing the indictment, Jack Smith, was there in the courtroom. Do we get a sense of the scope of this case, how long this will take to matriculate, and the next steps?
We know a couple things already. One, this took more than a year to investigate in the grand jury. Dozens and dozens, if not more than 100 witnesses. If you look at that 45-page indictment that was unsealed this week, you get a good sense of how big this case is. Now, it encompasses multiple states: Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan. In all of these states, the Justice Department alleges that the former president and 6 unnamed co-conspirators formulated a plot to have fraudulent slates of electors meet and cast votes for Trump that would then be submitted to the president of the Senate, and they hoped would be approved by former Vice President Mike Pence. Of course, he did not do that on January 6th, and now here we are.
We heard from Special Counsel Jack Smith on Tuesday that he was hoping for a speedy trial. We heard the opposite today from Trump's lawyers, yes?
That's right. The Justice Department has 7 days to give the judge an idea of how long they think their case will be. The defense is supposed to have 7 days to respond. What they said was, we're going to need a lot more time. We don't have an appreciation of the scope and the breadth of the evidence that the government has on our client. They want to see what kind of exculpatory evidence, which is to say evidence that might help their case, the government has to provide them. And of course, they have to start figuring out who they might want to talk to, whom they might want to call. And as we've seen in the Mar-a-Lago case and the Manhattan case, the president doesn't seem to be in a hurry to push these cases to trial anytime soon.
Yeah, just the first step in a long and what will be arduous process. And we know that the next status hearing in this case is scheduled for August 28th. The former president not expected to appear in person. Jordan Fisher, thank you so much.